Welcome back, everyone. Mix TV, and we're joined now by Matt Belloni. Matt is a partner and, of course, a great reporter for Puck News. Which, hey, Matt, how long have you had Puck now? Is it a couple of years?
Coming up on 2 years.
Well, I tell you, you're doing an incredible job with what you report from Hollywood. And, of course, Matt is also the former editor of the Hollywood Reporter. He's joined us several times. Matt, I see you on national television a lot talking about the strikes, and I want to get to that in a second, but we've got some real hot news. This is good timing. You broke a huge story yesterday about Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, and bringing a couple of guys, it seems, back into the fold. You're given credit for this big scoop nationwide.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because there's been so much focus on who is going to succeed Bob Iger at Disney. He was the CEO for 15 years, then he left. Then the Disney board didn't like his replacement, so they brought Iger back. He's facing a ton of challenges now because the streaming universe is a really challenged business. And now he's brought in these two guys, Kevin Mayer and Tom Staggs, both of whom were formerly at Disney in very high-level roles at the company. And he's now brought them in to advise him on how to manage the linear TV business and the streaming business. And a lot of people are saying, whoa, wait, if he's brought these guys in, maybe they could be potential replacements for Iger at some point.
I mean, how? Yeah, I mean, and how likely is that, Matt?
Right now, this is a consulting arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
These guys are only being brought in. They are staying with their other company they have, Candle Media, which is a content roll-up company. They're buying companies based with private equity money. And this is not a stated succession move. Whether it evolves into something more, we will see. These guys do have a lot of experience at the company. And, but then again, there's a reason why they didn't get the job in the first place. And Iger was not comfortable with giving them that role. So we'll see. I still think my money's still on somebody internally at the company, someone like the woman Dana Walden who runs their television group. But, this adds a little bit of intrigue to the mix.
We're joined by Matt Belloni with Puck. And Matt, I don't know if anyone would have advised Bob Iger to talk to David Faber, I believe it is. Is it Faber? Is that right?
Yeah, it's CNBC.
CNBC at Sun Valley. One of the most interesting timed interviews ever, where if for instance, if you worked at ABC, for instance, you're wondering if the curtains are on fire. But what did you make of that choice by Bob Iger?
Well, Iger had a lot to do in that interview. He just re-upped his contract until 2026, which gave him a little bit of runway to figure out what to do with the company. And he wanted in that interview to announce that he's open to selling ABC, FX, Freeform, all the Disney-owned channels. And that he's also interested in bringing on a strategic partner for ESPN, whether it's a big money partner that has a lot of resources or someone that could bring distribution to be able to better take on the tech companies with ESPN. Those are the things he wanted to do. He then went further and started talking about the writers' strike and the actors' strike, which had just started. And in that portion of the interview, he made some comments about how the writers were being unreasonable, they're being disruptive, this is the wrong time for a strike. That really came off as tone deaf, especially for somebody in his position, surrounded by the billionaires at a Sun Valley media mogul conference, sitting there in a director's chair with his cashmere sweater on, being interviewed on CNBC. That was exactly the wrong thing to say at the wrong time. And the actors union in particular, Fran Drescher, the president, absolutely pounced all over him, started calling him out of touch. He's one of the billionaires with it, exploiting workers, really using a lot of this class warfare rhetoric against him. And it really turned Iger into one of the villains of this strike.
Well, and his return to Disney, come back in following the dismissal of Bob Chapek, caught a lot of people off guard. He was very celebrated at that time, but it seems to be a different story. Well, let's talk about the strike. As we tape this on Tuesday, where are we right now, Matt? Or would it matter if we said whatever day it was? I mean, it's about the same thing.
It's really a standoff now. The two sides are not talking. There is rumblings that the studio side wants to come back to the table, perhaps with the writers. But as of now, there's no talks. There's nothing except dueling press releases where they, come out with an attack on one side, the other side responds, and the rest of Hollywood is sort of suffering for this impasse. I mean, the studios are having to delay some of their fall movies because the actors are not allowed to promote them. The productions are all shut down unless they are produced by one of these independent companies that are not a member of the studio side coalition. Those movies are allowed to continue production. But for the most part, everything's shut down and people are just kind of twiddling their thumbs.
And look, I mean, the timing of these dual strikes, and as far as in media and the changing of media, you alluded to it earlier that they've not figured streaming out. What could this do to the long-term health of the overall media business?
Well, it's certainly changing consumer habits. I mean, the late night TV shows are a perfect example. Every night that there aren't original late night TV shows, there's another night that people are looking elsewhere for entertainment at that hour, whether it's Netflix or whether it's TikTok or YouTube or some of these digital services that are really benefiting from the lack of professionally produced content. We haven't really seen the impact on the streaming services yet. In fact, the fact that they are not spending as much money has been good for their bottom line in the short term. But long term, we're going to start to see the lack of original shows probably towards the end of the year, beginning of next year. Big shows like Stranger Things or White Lotus or other things that are really popular are going to start to be delayed because of this. And then the summer movie season. There's supposed to be a big Deadpool movie in May of this next year. That is in jeopardy because Disney can't finish the movie.
Matt, if you had to make a prediction about the strike, through all of your sources, all of your experience, what do you think at this point? What do you think is going to happen? And as far as a timetable is concerned,
I still think mid-September, late September is when we might have a deal because that's when people will come back from the summer holiday and when the real pressure will be on the summer movies for next year. I think the studios will make an offer, and we'll see what the guilds do.
All right. Final question, and obviously everyone seems to be talking about BarbenHeimer, Barbie, Oppenheimer. You have written extensively about the condition of movies and movie theaters.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a blip? Is this? I mean, what does this mean overall?
I think it's definitely a good fact for Hollywood that these are two movies that are not sequels or superhero movies that are drawing massive audiences. Barbie, I believe, will likely be the biggest movie of the year, surpassing Super Mario Brothers. And it's bringing people back to theaters. There are stats that show that people who came back for Barbie, a big chunk of them had not come back to a movie in theaters since COVID. So that's good for the industry. It's creating a habit of people saying, oh, I had a good experience. I had fun. These movies delivered. Maybe I'll come back. So it creates momentum. People see trailers. But the movie business is still down in theaters about 20% from 2019. And that's a big deal when you talk about the health of the theatrical business. And there's really no sign over the next couple months of anything that's going to make a difference in that number. And in fact, if studios start delaying movies because of the strike, we could see this plunge into another really tough situation for these theaters.
What's the lesson, Matt? What's the lesson about these movies, about these type of movies that played so well?
Well, with Barbie, I think it's defying expectations, really taking a property that most people know and putting a spin on it that it was unexpected for a lot of audiences. It's, if you haven't seen it, it's basically a kind of pro-feminism manifesto disguised as a comedic Barbie movie, and that's really resonating, especially with younger audiences and young women. They're getting excited about the brand. They're dressing up. They're going to theaters in groups, and that's really fueling a lot of this. The Oppenheimer thing is really just, Chris Nolan as an auteur, his fan base showing up and getting everybody, caught up in this whole Barbenheimer phenomenon where people are seeing both in theaters. And it shows that people want to be part of events these days. It's fueled by social media. It's fueled by this sense of belonging that people have, where if you can create an event out of your movie, then people will respond and show up. And we had it happen two with two movies at the same time, and that's a rarity. But they seem to be helping each other.
A comment, Matt, we're down here in the southeast. I know you have family here in the southeastern part of the United States. Sound of Freedom is obviously a big movie, especially in this region of the country. What do you make of the success of this movie?
It's an interesting one because they had a really interesting marketing plan for that movie. They are doing this pay it forward system where they're showing it to people who like the film and then giving them an opportunity at the end of the film to help buy tickets for other people to see it. And a lot of people are doing that, whether it's church groups who are aligning with the messaging in the film, or business groups, or just regular fans that like the movie. They're really effectively spreading word of mouth and getting people into the theater because of that viral nature of the pay it forward movement. They're also doing some things. They're appealing to more conservative people that are out there that like the messaging of the film. And they kudos to Angel Studios because they have really found the audience for this film. They've galvanized it, and people are showing up. It's at $150 million. It's insane.
That's unbelievable. Final question for Matt Belloni. So your old friends at Variety, they decided to write an article about CNN over the last 18 months. They say that has been absolutely hammered by every quarter. It looks like a corner, I should say, of the media business. What do you make of that article and all of the denials that are coming through?
I read it, and a lot of the stuff in it did not ring true to me, especially since there was some stuff about Puck and the reporting that our writer Dylan Byers had done, and reporting that I know is very solid that the writer questioned. There's a lot of bad media stories out there that come and go. This one I think resonated because it questioned the integrity of The Atlantic as a magazine. And I know The Atlantic to be a very upstanding piece of journalism house, and they pushed back very hard against some of the suggestions in the piece, and they had proof of that. And there were so many denials on the record of some of the stuff about Jeff Zucker and CNN. And so, I don't put much stock in the story, but, they quietly updated the story or corrected a lot of the stuff in it. So I didn't read all those corrections. To be honest, I haven't paid that much attention to it. Once a story like that gets kind of debunked, I don't really pay attention to it.
Matt, we really appreciate your time. Puck has just taken off like a rocket, and just congratulations. If people want more information, and go ahead and get subscribed, what do they need to do?
Yeah, you can just go to puck.news, and you can go over to my name, Matt Belloni, or the newsletters, and you'll see my newsletter, What I'm Hearing, and you can get missives from me twice a week about what's really going on in Hollywood.
Matt, we really appreciate your time. Congratulations on the big scoop about Iger and the great work you guys are doing.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.